Hello and welcome to Creative Sparkle. My name's Holly and today we're doing an art journal prompt list. So grab your art supplies and let's get crafting. Hello and thank you for joining me today. So I'm just priming the book because I'm working in a recycled book today, so I want to get those words into the background. If you don't need to prime your page, don't worry about that. The first prompt we're going to do is to cover your spread with a bright colour. So I've chosen this avocado green paint and I'm just going to cover the background with one plain colour in that. So once you've covered your full page, we move on to prompt number 2, which is to add oil pastel or crayon heavily in blocks or wholly if you wish, so you can cover the whole page if you want to. I decided to do these blobs looking things and I've chosen to use a blue oil pastel I'm using here. So if you don't want to use a blue, whatever colour you've used in the background, I'm sure you can find something that works best with your colour. So once they're all added, we'll move on to prompt number 3, which is to scratch patterns or images throughout the previous medium. So in the crayon or oil pastel that you've used, I'm just scratching in highlights on this blob looking things that I've done. So just because I wanted to add a bit of effect. If you wanted to do little swirls, or you can do images or shapes, whatever you feel goes with your page the best. As I say, we haven't got any plans for the rest of the page at the moment, but that's what I decided to do with those. So once we've done that, we'll move on to prompt number 4, which is to prime your page with a clear medium, so clear gesso or Mod Podge as I'm using here. So you just want to be careful with this step, because if you do use gel medium or something a little bit thicker than Mod Podge, you could potentially smear the oil pastel or crayon that you've used. So just be careful with that part. Mine didn't smudge, thankfully, so just make sure there's no extra bits of crumbs over the top as well. So once we've done the whole page, we'll let that dry and then we'll move on to the next prompt, which is prompt number 5, and that's going to be to add your own monster creation to the page. So this could be assembled from other creatures if you're not confident in your creativity, as I've written here. So you don't have to draw something completely on your own if you don't want to. If you use stamps usually, or you can print something out and collage it together to make your own monster. I've drawn my own monster here, so I'm just going around it with a fine liner so that we can use the outline, and then I'm going to use watercolour paints to paint up because I've done it on watercolour paper as well. So I've created my own monster, but as I said, if you wanted to get a couple of creatures and put them together, if you're not confident in drawing, that's completely up to you. There's no rules, it's your page. So I'm just erasing the pencil and then I'm going to add the watercolour to give him some colour. So once you're happy with how your monster has turned out, let's get him stuck down on the page, and I'm going to use Mod Podge as we have a layer of that on the page anyway, so I'm just going to stick him down with that, and then we'll move on to the next prompt, which is prompt number 6, and it's to create a border at the top and bottom of the page. So that's just the top and the bottom, so if we leave the sides blank. So I've chosen these two colours, and I'm going to be doing sort of a splodgy paint looking thing. So you'll see once I've finished that, and I'm going to use the two colours to add highlights and shadows just so that it looks a bit more 3D. If you prefer, you can stick something down for your border, or you can use a stamp to stamp images, or you can draw it on. Whatever you feel suits your page the best. This is just what I wanted to go for. So prompt number 7 is to surround your monster with the weather of your choice. So once I finished that border, I decided that I'm going to do rain, but in the same colour as that border, so that's why I'm showing you those two paints again. So I'm going to use the darker colour to do the raindrops, and then add some highlights with the lighter pink to add some interest to the page. I think the colours go quite well with the monster that I've done, and I'm quite happy with how it turns out. But if you decided that you wanted to do sunshine or a rainbow or even a storm or something different, you don't have to use rain, obviously. You could just make it look windy, or do some patterns to make wind, or whatever you feel is appropriate for your page and your monster. You could even add some cotton wool and do clouds or something like that, so it's cloudy. It doesn't have to be rain at all. So once you're happy with your weather, we'll move on to prompt number 8, which is to give your monster some small friends, or smaller than your monster anyway. So I decided that I'm going to use these 4 paints that I have not yet used on the page. So I've got red, green, orange and yellow. I'm just going to paint the block of each colour and then draw the monster on top of them, and then use a fine liner to do the outline of the colour, and then give each of the eyes a white paint so that you can see the eyes as well. So they're going to be more basic monsters than the other monster that I did. There's no highlights or shadows or different colours on them. They're literally just one colour with the white for the eyes. If you wanted to add monsters or friends, they don't have to be monsters, they could be different animals, they could be, I don't know, fairies, they can be anything that you like, just smaller creatures than your monster. So you could even use stamps to just do some stamping across your page to add some friends on there for him. They don't have to be monster friends, they can be animal friends. So that's just what I decided to do. So I've drawn these myself again, they're not stamps or drawings that I've copied from anywhere, I just created them. And then I'm going to cut them out and stick them on the page again with Mod Podge. So once you've finished adding the friends, we'll move on to the next prompt, which is prompt number 9, add some highlights and or shadows. So I actually didn't add highlights in the end, I just decided to do shadows, and I used a black Inktense pencil, and I just gave shadows to the monsters so it brings them out from the page a bit more. And obviously once added the lines and then added some water just to smooth it out a bit. So once you're happy with your highlights / shadows, we can move on to the 10th and final prompt, which is to give your monsters a name and use the and the as your title. So I did give an example there. So the one that I've chosen to use is Fritz and the Frantics. So they're my title for the monsters that I have, and I'm using these stickers that you can see here to add the title. And I did add a watered down version of the colour that I used for the rain and the border, just to blend it into the page a bit more so it's more cohesive. So once I've added the title, that's all done then, and that's the end of the page. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you do decide to take part in the prompts, I would love to see your creation, so do tag me on Instagram with the hashtag #SparklePrompts, and I will see you next time, where we will turn your creative spark into a creative sparkle. Thanks, bye.